Welcome to Far From Eden. Happy Sunday. You know, it's always good to search and center yourself around what is true, what is good, and what is beautiful. And on Sunday, one of the things we do in that realm is we study the Grimm fairy tales. And we've done so many of the very famous ones: Hansel and Gretel, Rapunzel, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, Cinderella, all because I wanted to see what was changed from the original and why. Why would they change it? What don't they want us to know? And it's been very interesting. So, speaking of which, not only did Disney change it for their, fairy tales movies that they made in the 20th century. I'm not talking about the super woke ones that came out fairly recently, or the Snow White one that they tried to do and then had a remake because people were having a bit of a reaction to it. But the original Disney classics were changed from what the Grimm brothers wrote down. They were already hiding the truth from us, the truth about men, the truth about women, the truth about life, the truth about good and evil, so many things. So we've got a tradition. And because we've done all of the famous ones, and there's so many that I've literally never heard of. So now we're going in my book that is, at first I thought was old. It's from the 20th century, early 20th century. But the Grimm brothers first published the tales that they collected as they came through Europe, collecting, folk lore and stories that had been passed on. That was first published in 1812. Think about 1812. That's before the Industrial Revolution in America. Industry didn't really start happening here until after our Civil War, which ended in 1864, 1865? Oh my goodness gracious. Well, at least I'm hopefully not going to mispronounce anybody's YouTube channel today like I did yesterday. So we're just going in the order of the table of contents in my book. But I'm printing them off the web, the 1812 version, because last time I did Hans in Luck, I did the Traveling Musicians, and one of our loyal chat members said, oh, there was, it didn't contain something. Mine didn't contain what the original contained. And that was, from that point on, I was like, okay, we got to do the 1812 ones. I want to know what the original lessons were that were so important to our culture to teach the children and reiterate to the adults. You'd be surprised, if this is your first time, you'd be surprised how much of our culture and mores and all of that has just been, I would say, it's been changed on purpose. I mean, I wonder how long the 1812 versions will be available online, or if they'll just change them, kind of like 1984. So the next one in our table of contents in this book that we have not done yet is called The Golden Bird. And that's another one I have never heard of. Very excited. This is my favorite video to make, is the fairy tale video. Doesn't get the same amount of views as, some of the other ones I make. So please hit the like button so YouTube will, share it around and share it somewhere if you can think of somewhere to do that. It would really help. Thank you so much. So it's The Golden Bird, 1812, by Jacob Ludwig Grimm and Wilhelm Karl Grimm. Pardon my German accent, as I do not have a German accent. Okay, here we go. The Golden Bird. In times gone by, there was a king who had, at the back of his castle, a beautiful pleasure garden, in which stood a tree that bore golden apples. As the apples ripened, they were counted, but one morning, one was missing. Then the king was angry, and he ordered that watch should be kept about the tree every night. Now the king had 3 sons, and he sent the eldest to spend the whole night in the garden. So he watched till midnight, and then he could keep off sleep no longer. And in the morning, another apple was missing. The second son had to watch the following night, but it fared no better. For when 12 o'clock had struck, he went to sleep. And in the morning, another apple was missing. Now came the turn of the third son to watch, and he was ready to do so. But the king had less trust in him and believed he would acquit himself still worse than his brothers. But in the end, he consented to let him try. So the young man lay down under the tree to watch and resolved that sleep should not be master. When it struck 12, something came rushing through the air, and he saw in the moonlight a bird flying toward him, whose feathers glittered like gold. The bird perched upon the tree and had already pecked off an apple when the young man let fly an arrow at it. The bird flew away, but the arrow had struck its target, and one of its golden feathers fell to the ground. The young man picked it up, and taking it next morning to the king, told him what had happened in the night. The king called his council together, and all declared that such a feather was worth more than the whole kingdom. Since the feather is so valuable, said the king, one is not enough for me. I must and will have the whole bird. So the eldest son set off, and relying on his own cleverness, he thought he should soon find the golden bird. When he had gone some distance, he saw a fox sitting at the edge of a wood, and he pointed his gun at him. Oh, I should have said pew pew, as in YouTube, but fairy tales, right? Oh. The fox cried out, "Do not shoot me, and I will give you good counsel. You are on your way to find the golden bird, and this evening you will come to a village in which 2 taverns stand facing each other. One will be brightly lighted up, and there will be plenty of merriment going on inside. Do not mind about that, but go into the other one, although it will look to you very uninviting." How can a silly beast give one any rational advice? Thought the king's son, and let fly at the fox, but missed him. And he stretched out his tail and ran quickly into the wood. Then the young man went on his way, and towards evening he came to a village, and there stood the 2 taverns. In one singing and dancing was going on, the other looked quite dull and wretched. "I should be a fool," said he, "to go into that dismal place while there is anything so good close by." So he went into the Merry Inn, and there lived in clover, quite forgetting the bird and his father and all good counsel. Well, that's not good. As time went on, and the eldest son never came home, the second son set out to seek the golden bird. He met with the fox just as the eldest did, and received good advice from him without attending to it. And when he came to the 2 taverns, his brother was standing and calling to him. He's still there. Oh boy. His brother was standing and calling to him at the window of one of them, out of which came sounds of merriment. So he could not resist, but went in and reveled to his heart's content. It's not good. It's like Pleasure Island in Pinocchio, right? And then, as time went on, the youngest son wished to go forth and to try his luck, but his father would not consent. "It would be useless," said he. "He is much less likely to find the bird than his brothers, and if any misfortune were to happen to him, he would not know how to help himself. His wits are none of the best. Isn't he the one that got the feather in the first place? That started this whole quest? Far be it from me to question the king. But at last, as there was no peace to be had, he let him go. By the side of the wood sat the fox, begged him to spare his life, and gave him good counsel. The young man was kind and said, "Be easy, little fox. I will do you no harm." "You shall not repent of it," answered the fox, "and that you may get there all the sooner, get up and sit. Get up and sit on my tail." And no sooner had he done so than the fox began to run. That's a big fox. Began to run, and off they went over stock and stone, so that the wind whistled in their hair. When they reached the village, the young man got down, and following the fox's advice, went into the mean-looking tavern without hesitating, and there he passed a quiet night, like as in day and night, not like night. The next morning, when he went out into the field, the fox, who was sitting there already, said, "I will tell you further what you have to do. Go straight on until you come to a castle, before which a great band of soldiers lie. But do not trouble yourself about them, for they will be all asleep and snoring. Pass through them and forward into the castle, and go through all the rooms." This is fun. "Until you come to one where there is a golden bird hanging in a wooden cage. Near at hand will stand empty a golden cage of state, but you must beware of taking the bird out of his ugly cage and putting him into the fine one. If you do so, you will come to harm." After he had finished saying this, the fox stretched out his tail again, and the king's son sat him down upon it. Then away they went over stock and stone, so that the wind whistled through their hair. And when the king's son reached the castle, he found everything as the fox had said. And he at last entered the room where the golden bird was hanging in a wooden cage, while a golden one was standing by. The 3 golden apples, we found the apples. The 3 golden apples, too, were in the room. Then, thinking it foolish to let the beautiful bird stay in that mean and ugly cage, he opened the door of it, took hold of it, and put it in the golden one. In the same moment, the bird uttered a piercing cry. The soldiers awaked, rushed in, seized the king's son, and put him in prison. The next morning, he was brought before a judge, and as he confessed everything, condemned to death. But the king said he would spare his life on one condition: that he should bring him the golden horse, whose paces were swifter than the wind, and that then he should also receive the golden bird as a reward. Oh, this is so exciting. I really love this story. So the king's son set off to find the golden horse. But he sighed and was very sad, for how should it be accomplished? And then he saw his old friend the fox sitting by the roadside. "Now you see," said the fox, "all this has happened because you would not listen to me. But be of good courage. I will bring you through and will tell you how you are to get the golden horse. You must go straight on until you come to a castle where the horse stands in his stable. Before the stable door, the grooms will be lying, but they will all be asleep and snoring, and you can go sorry, I'm getting too excited. And you can go and quietly go and quietly upon him the plain saddle. Oh, okay. You can put it. Okay. The plain saddle of wood and leather, and not the golden one, which will hang close by. Otherwise, it will go badly with you. I hope he listens this time. Then the fox stretched out his tail, and the king's son seated himself upon it, and away they went over stock and stone until the wind whistled through their hair. And everything happened just as the fox had said. And he came to the stall where the golden horse was, and as he was about to put on him the plain saddle, he thought to himself, such a beautiful animal would be disgraced were I to put on him the good saddle. Wait, were I not to put on him the good saddle? No, which becomes him so well. However, no sooner did the horse feel the golden saddle touch him than he began to neigh. And the grooms all awoke, seized the king's son, and threw him into prison. The next morning, he was delivered up to justice and condemned to death. But the king promised him his life, and also to bestow upon him the golden horse, if he could convey thither, the beautiful princess of the golden castle. Are we playing Mario Brothers right now? What's happening? This is good. With a heavy heart, the king's son set out, but by great good luck, he soon met with the faithful fox. You know, I wish we really should be reading stories like this to our children. Because at this time, I would say to them, what do you think's gone wrong so far? How do you think this next quest could go better? Why do you think the other brothers, you know what I mean? It's just so helpful to actually teach them things. But we don't, if the mothers are all out working, then they're not doing this. And they don't even know. Most people don't even really know about Grimm Brothers fairy tales and how amazing they are. It's just unfortunate, but hey, if you guys all like and share the video, maybe we'll bring it back. Okay, so we want to get the princess of the golden castle. So the fox stretched out his tail, and the king's son seated upon it, and away they went over stock and stone, so that the wind whistled through their hair. And when he came to the golden castle, all was as the fox had said. He waited until midnight, when all lay in deep sleep. And then, as the beautiful princess went to the bathing house, he went up to her and gave her a kiss. And she willingly promised to go with him. But she begged him earnestly and with tears that he would let her first go and take leave of her parents. At first he denied her prayer. But as she wept so much the more and fell at his feet, he gave in at last. And no sooner had the princess reached her father's bedside than he and all who were in the castle waked up, and the young man was seized and thrown into prison. Oh my goodness gracious. I think I skipped a part. I'm so sorry. I was talking about how we need to read this to kids, and meanwhile I skipped a part. So I'm going to go back. Okay. He met with the faithful fox. This is the part I skipped. So we'll just pretend that didn't happen. That's fun. My brain is fun. This is what the fox is saying to him. I ought now to leave you to your own ill luck, said the fox, but I am sorry for you and will once more help you in your need. Your way lies straight up to the golden castle. You will arrive there in the evening, and at night, when all is quiet, the beautiful princess goes to the bath. And as she is entering the bathing house, go up to her and give her a kiss. Then she will follow you, and you can lead her away. Do not suffer her first to go and take leave of her parents, or it will go ill with you. Then the fox stretched out his tail, the king's son seated himself upon it, and away they went over stock and stone, So we know what happened, but I'm just going to read through that part again. And when he came to the golden castle, because he totally simped out, right? It's like, don't do what she said. But it's not just her. He was messing up with the other tasks too. What is wrong with him that he can't get it through his head? I don't get it. He just can't get it through his head. He waited until midnight when all lay in deep sleep. And then as the beautiful princess went to the bathing house, he went up to her and gave her a kiss. And she willingly promised to go with him. But she begged him earnestly and with tears that he would let her first go and take leave of her parents. At first he denied her prayer, but as she wept so much the more and fell at his feet, he gave in at last. And no sooner had the princess reached her father's bedside than he and all who were in the castle waked up. The young man was seized and thrown into prison. The next morning the king said to him, "Thy life is forfeit, but thou shalt find grace if thou canst level that mountain that lies before my windows and over which I am not able to see. And if this is done within 8 days, thou shalt have my daughter for a reward." So the king's son set to work and dug and shoveled away without ceasing. But when on the 7th day he saw how little he had accomplished and that all his work was as nothing, he fell into great sadness and gave up all hope. But on the evening of the 7th day, the fox appeared and said, "You do not deserve that I should help you." Wait a minute. Okay, I'm going to keep reading, but I have a thought about this fox. "You do not deserve that I should help you, but go now and lie down to sleep, and I will do the work for you." The next morning, when he awoke and looked out of the window, the mountain had disappeared. The young man hastened, full of joy, to the king and told him that his behest was fulfilled, and whether the king liked it or not, he had to keep to his word and let his daughter go. So they both went away together, and it was not long before the faithful fox came up to them. "Well, you have got the best first." "Got the best first," said he, "but you must know the golden horse belongs to the princess of the golden castle." "But how shall I get it?" asked the young man. "I am going to tell you," answered the fox. "First, go to the king who sent you to the golden castle and take to him the beautiful princess. There will then be a very great rejoicing. He will willingly give you the golden horse, and they will lead him out to you. Then mount him without delay and stretch out your hand to each of them to take leave, and last of all to the princess. And when you have her by the hand, swing her up on the horse behind you, and off you go. Nobody will be able to overtake you, for that horse goes swifter than the wind." And so it was all happily done, and the king's son carried off the beautiful princess on the golden horse. The fox did not stay behind, and he said to the young man, "Now I will help you to get the golden bird. When you draw near the castle where the bird is, let the lady alight, and I will take her under my care. Then you must ride the golden horse into the castle yard, and there will be a great rejoicing to see it, and they will bring you out to the golden bird. As soon as you have the cage in your hand, you must start off back to us, and then you shall carry the lady away." The plan was successfully carried out. And when the young man returned with the treasure, the fox said, "Now, what will you give me for my reward?" "What would you like?" asked the young man. "When we are passing through the wood, I desire that you should slay me." "Oh, When we are passing through the wood, I desire that you should slay me and cut my head and feet off. That were a strange sign of gratitude, said the king's son, and I cannot possibly do such a thing. Then said the fox, if you will not do it, I must leave you. But before I go, let me give you some good advice. Beware of two things. Buy no gallows meat and sit at no brookside. With that, the fox ran off into the wood. The young man thought to himself, that is a wonderful animal with most singular ideas. How should anyone buy gallows meat? And I am sure I have no particular fancy for sitting by a brookside. So he rode on with the beautiful princess, and their way led them through the village where his two brothers had stayed. There they heard great outcry and noise, and when he asked what it was all about, they told him that two people were going to be hanged. And when he drew near, he saw that it was his two brothers, who had done all sorts of evil tricks and had wasted all their goods. He asked if there were no means of setting them free. Oh, yes, if you will buy them off, answered the people. But why should you spend your money in redeeming such worthless men? But he persisted in doing so, and when they were let go, they all went on their journey together. Gallows meat? After a while, they came to a wood where the fox had met them first, and there it seemed so cool and sheltered from the sun's burning rays that the two brothers said, let us rest here for a little by the brook and eat and drink to refresh ourselves. The young man consented. What is wrong with him? Quite forgetting the fox's warning, and he seated himself by the brookside, suspecting no evil. But the two brothers thrust him backwards into the brook, seized the princess, the horse, and the bird, and went home to their father. Is not this the golden bird that we bring? Said they. And we have also the golden horse and the princess of the golden castle. Then there was a great rejoicing in the royal castle, but the horse did not feed, the bird did not chirp, and the princess sat still and wept. The youngest brother, however, had not perished. The brook was, by good fortune, dry, and he fell on soft moss without receiving any hurt, but he could not get up again. For in his need, the faithful fox was not lacking. He came up running and reproached him for having forgotten his advice. But I cannot forsake you all the time, said he. I will help you back again into daylight. So he told the young man to grasp his tail and hold on to it fast, and so he drew him up again. Still, you are not quite out of danger, said the fox. Your brothers, not being certain of your death, have surrounded the wood with sentinels who are to put you to death if you let yourself be seen. A poor beggar man was sitting by the path, and the young man changed clothes with him and went in that disguise into the king's courtyard. Nobody knew him, but the bird began to chirp, and the horse began to feed, and the beautiful princess ceased weeping. What does this mean? Said the king, astonished. The princess answered, I cannot tell, except that I was sad, and now I am joyful. It is to me as if my rightful bridegroom had returned. Then she told him all that happened, although the two brothers had threatened to put her to death if she let out anything. The king then ordered every person who was in the castle to be brought before him, and with the rest came the young man like a beggar in his wretched garments, but the princess knew him and greeted him well, falling on his neck and kissing him. The wicked brothers were seized and put to death, and the youngest brother was married to the princess and succeeded to the inheritance of his father. Succeeded to the inheritance of his father. But what became of the poor fox? Long afterwards, the king's son was going through the wood, and the fox met him and said, "Now, you have everything that you can wish for, but my misfortunes never come to an end, and it lies in your power to free me from them." And once more he prayed the king's son earnestly to slay him and cut off his head and feet. So at last he consented, and no sooner was it done than the fox was changed into a man, and was no other than the brother of the beautiful princess. And thus he was set free from a spell that had bound him for a long, long time. And now indeed there lacked nothing to their happiness as long as they lived. Wow, that was fun. That was one of the longest ones we've read so far. Well, you have to have faith, right? You have to resist temptation. You have to have faith. You have to you can't be dazzled by things like gold and merriment. You have to have faith. That fox was, it didn't matter how many times. It was reminding me of a Christ-like figure, honestly, because it didn't matter how many times the boy or the third son, didn't follow directions. When he asked again, he was given another chance, and another chance, and another chance, and another chance. And it ended up good for him in the end. That was great. I'm not sure if there's any sort of nature of the fairer gender, so to say, to make it more YouTube friendly. But I think if we could restore these kinds of values, these kinds of teachings, but you need the family for that. So you might think, well, then why do we read this? What's the point? Because we need to remind ourselves what is true, what is good, what is beautiful. Otherwise, nihilism. You will head into nihilism. You have to feed your souls. You have to protect your peace. You have to either remember who you are and where you came from, or learn. And I kind of think we're doing a bit of both on this channel. I know I've learned a bunch from you guys in the chat about these fairy tales, about other things, things that are going on currently in the dating world, things that have happened in your lives. And it's important, I think, to have a touchstone. And when the Grimm brothers were collecting these stories, there was no question what a man was, what a woman was, that families were kind of duh. You have a family, you raise lots of children. That's a blessing. Those were just solid. And nowadays, in the media that we have, it'll tell you that's backwards, that's right wing, that's what have you. But if you look at what they're offering in return, you got a ton of what they call mental health issues. I just think it's people that if you live disordered, if you live out of God's order, which is a natural order, you're going to have things that they will label mental illness, this, that, the other. It's people are malfunctioning. They're glitching because they're not living in correct order. Whenever I read these fairy tales, even if it isn't like, oh, see, this is a wicked witch or whatever, there's just something. It's just like, it's like you remember something, but you've never heard it before. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like your soul remembers it. You're just, I don't know if I'm the only one. You guys let me know if that made any sense, or if if you feel a similar thing, when you're reading the Bible, reading old fairy tales that were basically like everybody was, everybody believed in God. Of course they did. Obviously there's going to be one or two or whatever, but most people believed in God. And in this part of the world, most people were Christian. So that's, all the stories come out of there. So thank you so much for hanging with me on this one, The Golden Bird. Goodness, that was way more than I could imagine. It was quite the quest that we just went on. And I hope you're having a lovely Sunday. I hope that you have protected your peace today. I think about it more on a Sunday, I think, than any other day. I hope that you fed your soul. This fed mine, reading this with you guys, and then reading what you have to say about it will as well. Please don't forget to hit like. I really like the fairy tale videos, and hit like so that they'll get out there a little bit more. And I hope that you have a wonderful day today and a wonderful evening. And I love you guys, and I'll see you on the next one. Okay, bye.